Hey, welcome. My name is Tom Carnell. This is Carnell Knowledge. You've made it to a show I do 3 times a week here on YouTube, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, in which I review / recommend 5 movies, a book, and 5 records. Little background, I was a buyer for Tower Records for many years. I published Carpet Nocta magazine, which was a dark art publication, and I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 15 years. Remember to please watch this video up until the end. It helps me with the algorithm. If you have anything you want to talk about, please comment below. If it's something you want to take offline, you can go ahead and email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. Keep in mind that, again, in the description down there, you will find links to trailers or full movies for the movies, Amazon page for the books, and YouTube playlists for all of the records. So don't just take my word for it. Head on over to those pages and you will be able to hear everything for yourself and judge accordingly. Now that that's done, let us get started with today's films. We're going to start way back in 1944. There's a film called The Lodger. It's directed by John Bram, stars Laird Gregar. We'll get to him more in a second. Merle Oberon, who was in Wuthering Heights. George Sanders, who was in All About Eve. Rebecca, Picture of Dorian Gray. And the great Cedric Hardwicke, who was in 10 Commandments and War of the Worlds. This is basically a film about a family who has fallen on hard times, and so they have opened their home to let people come in and live, hence the name, The Lodger. And it's during a time when Jack the Ripper is roaming through London and killing people. And little by little, they all start to suspect that their newest lodger is, in fact, Jack the Ripper. It's essentially a remake of Albert Hitchcock's film of the same name, The Lodger. It's called The Lodger, A Story of London Fog from 1927. This was later remade as a film called The Man in the Attic in 1952 with Jack Palance. It's from a novel by Marie Belloc Lowndes, and it's one of the first movies to feature, as was very popular in the jolly of the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, the killer's point of view, typified by, if you remember, in Halloween, where you saw like through the eyes of the mask. This is the first film to do that. It's a hard to do story. Anytime you have a story where everyone's pretty familiar with it, everyone kind of knows how it ends. It's like Titanic, right? Everyone knows that the boat sinks at the end. So you have to be kind of novel and take an interesting spin on it. This does it in spades. I'll tell you now, not to bury the lead, but I really enjoyed this film much more than I feel like I should have. And the reason why I did was the aforementioned Laird Gregar. Who as the lodger, he is terrific. He's a hulking man. He's like 6'3", almost 300 pounds. He died fairly young. But man, does he, without even realizing it, you almost don't even know that he's carrying the entire picture. And by the time we get to the end, him heavily shadowed coming towards someone, he's just a great character. Visually interesting. He's kind of soft-spoken. And when he does speak, it usually betrays this relationship that he had with his brother, who died at the hands of because of a wanton woman, and hence that's why Jack the Ripper is going around and killing these people. It oddly uses the phrase dance hall girls instead of prostitutes, which I thought was kind of odd. But boy, is this a terrific film. It's a little slow. It's fairly short, but immediately you're drawn into the happenings. You're drawn into the goings on in the house. You're drawn to this one character, and little by little, the story unfolds. And man, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, you can get it. I saw it on YouTube. And boy, oh boy, good stuff. Good stuff. Our next film, we've talked about The Blind Dead, Armando de Osorio's films, featuring the Blind Dead. We reviewed Tombs of the Blind Dead. I think we might have even gotten around to Ghost Galleon. But this is the second one. It's called El Ataque de los Muertos sin Ojos, aka Return of the Blind Dead. There's a lot of AKAs. AKA Return of the Evil Dead, aka Mark of the Devil 5, aka Mark of the Devil 5, Night of Blind Terror. Again, directed by Armando de Osorio, stars Tony Kendall, who was in a film called Three Golden Circus, Fernando Sancho, who is in Son of Captain Blood, and Voodoo Black Exorcist, and Esperanza Roy, who was in a film called Battered Flesh. In this second one, it has to do with a celebration that is taking place in a small Spanish town about the vanquishing of the Templar Knights back in the day. And there's a local handicapped person who rather, not inadvertently, but rather vertently, kills somebody, and that prompts the Blind Dead to come back. There are several cuts of this film out there, as many as there are titles. It was a difficult film for some reason, even given the success of the first one, to get financed, and the production was tough, according to Osorio. Personally, it's my favorite of the Blind Dead films. It's essentially a remake of the first film. Basically, the Blind Dead are wandering through the streets, killing people, and the townspeople have to get together and figure out a way to once again vanquish them. The version I saw was kind of odd, that it was dubbed into English, and then periodically there would be scenes where suddenly everyone's speaking German, and then they would go right back to English. It's kind of odd that way. Gore is prevalent throughout. It's not uncomfortable gore, but I'm not going to lie to you, there is some pretty rough stuff here. The first scene shows some murders that are pretty graphic. Most of the characters in the film are pretty despicable, particularly the mayor, who looks like Ron Jeremy and is a real piece of work. At one point, in order to save himself, he tells a small girl "Oh yeah, your mom's that way," and the kid wanders off calling for her mom, which of course, all of the Blind Dead, because they can't see, all they can do is hear, come right after her. I don't know why it is that it's so easy to raise these guys from the dead, but it seems like it happens time and time again, which I guess is fortuitous for the film. The Blind Dead look great. The horses, they are cool. They're much cooler in the first film, Tombs of the Blind Dead. And I don't know why that is, because they're pretty evidently live horses. There is one scene where they pull the cloak back and you see their face. But again, if you're in on the Tombs of the Blind Dead, if you were in on Ghost Galleon, you're going to love the second one. Very, very fun. Very, very cool, kind of interesting visually. It's very appealing. Everyone's wearing a lot of polyester. But yeah, good stuff. If you like the Blind Dead, you're going to love this film. Our next film is from 2001. It's a documentary. It's called SCHLOCK, The Secret History of American Movies. It's directed by Ray Green, and it stars all the usual suspects. Roger Corman, Dick Miller, Samuel Z. Arkoff, Mila Nurmi, aka Vampira, is in there, and there's a great interview with Doris Wishman. If you know Doris Wishman at all, she was a female director in the early '60s that did a lot of nudist colony movies there. And she later moved on to things that were more. They used to be these things. They weren't quite. They were called roughies, where there was a lot of violence towards women. She didn't do too much of that stuff, but there was a little bit towards the end. It's a look at legendary exploitation filmmakers from the golden days of drive-in movies and how they had a lasting effect on film in general. It's very informative. It's very insightful. It's very detailed. Most of these people are dead now, so to see them, rather in the flesh or in the cinematic flesh, talking about their careers is really cool. Again, Doris Wishman has passed, Milo Nurmi has passed, Roger Corman has passed, I mean, Dick Miller has passed. So to hear them talk about it in real time was really kind of neat. Focuses a little too much on the salacious aspect. Again, the nudist colony stuff, the roughies, the parts of exploitation cinema that are truly exploitative. But it is one of the better examples of those kinds of things. And man, there's a lot of them. I'm going to be doing a whole show where all of the films are going to be documentaries, because there's so many out there, and most are pretty interesting. Let's see. Speaking of documentaries, the next one is from 1974. I saw this on Canopy. It's called In Search of Dracula, aka Vem var Dracula. It's directed by Calvin Lloyd. It's basically Christopher Lee's show. He's the talking head. He's the narrator. They steal pretty liberally from a lot of They license pretty liberally from a lot of Hammer films with Christopher Lee in it. It's based on a book by Raymond McNally and Radu Florescu of the same name. Oddly, about 2/3 of the way through, it veers off into what could only be entitled In Search of Frankenstein. I mean, in the midst of all this Dracula talk, suddenly we're hip deep in a discussion of Frankenstein, which is fine. We come back to the Dracula stuff, but this is all a sort of beginner's guide to vampires, especially cinematic vampires. Let's see. Longtime vampire fans won't find much new here, but it's nice that it's all in one presentation, and it's told very well. There is a lot of inserts there that are jarring, only in the fact that if you're a vampire film fan, you'll have seen them all if you've seen the Christopher Lee stuff. All in all, very informative. It's a very interesting primer to the subject, and I recommend it. Let's see, our last film, 1974, film called Frightmare. Now, you have to be careful here. There's several films out there called Frightmare. Again, this is specifically 1974, directed by Peter Warner, who directed things like House of Long Shadows, House of Whipcord, The Flesh and Blood Show. It stars Rupert Davis, who was in Quatermass 2, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and Sheila Keith, who is in House of Long Shadows. Has to do with a man and a woman who, the man is one of those characters that just loves the woman, so when she kind of goes off the rails, he kind of goes along with her. In the beginning of the film, they're in court being tried. They're both sentenced to asylums, and at some point they get let out, and everyone's kind of watching them, especially her, to see that her predilections don't come back. But we wouldn't have a movie if they didn't come back. It's very much kind of a Grand Guignol, and it's very, very, very British. It's written far better than I expected, and played rather earnestly. The goings on are slow, meandering a little bit. But once the action starts to take place, it takes place in spades. The acting is okay. The direction is decent. It does play like a BBC made-for-TV movie, which I found a little disappointing. But the most interesting aspect is the relationship between the elderly man and the woman, and then their relatives, their a niece and a nephew, as I recall. One is very much trying to keep it together, and one is definitely not. The ending is a little frustrating, but overall, I thought it was okay. It didn't really knock my socks off, but I did enjoy it. Let's see, moving on to books. 1898. Nuts. And it's this. Henry James, The Turn of the Screw. Classic ghost story. First appeared in Collier's. It's another seminal work in Gothic fiction. Stephen King once described this in The Haunting of Hill House as the only two great supernatural works of horror of this century. It has to do with a governess that comes to work at this place and caring for these two children, and she becomes convinced that the place is haunted. And we wouldn't have a story if it wasn't haunted. The writing is a little outdated, a little old feeling, but man, the story's great. It's classic stuff. You've seen this thing either in one cinematic incarnation or another. If not, you've probably seen versions of this ripped off year after year after year after year. Good stuff. Sort of helped make the tropes and the cliches that most ghost stories kind of use. It's good stuff. Again, you gotta go back and read the old stuff in order to understand the new stuff, and you'll see that the new stuff isn't quite so new. Let's see. Again, I got my copy on my Kindle for like $1, something like that. And that's $1 well spent in my eyes. Let's see, moving on to records. We've got 5 here. The first one from 2023, the group is called Whatitdo Archive Group. The album is called Palace of 1,000 Sounds. This band is from Reno, Nevada. This is sort of mid-century exotica, for want of a better word. Sounds a lot like, let's say, spaghetti western or Italian film scores. It's obscure, but it's also pretty accessible. It's a terrific record. I loved it. I want to say I first heard it on Cody Goodfellow's radio show. Go find him on Facebook and you can get more information on that. He does a great show every week called, I forget the name of it, something, let's see. This record, it reminded me a lot of the classics of exotica, Martin Denny, Les Baxter, Esquivel, Robert Drasnin, who I've covered on this show before. It also reminded me of Glass Beams, Calibro 35, and Tinawaran. This was a great record. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It passed without... it went down super easy. And again, you can find all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about. You can find it on Spotify, or you can go into the description and there will be the YouTube playlist that you can check it out from there. Moving on to 1969. This is a self-titled record by the group ARZACHEL, ARZACHEL. They're an English psych blues band. This is their only record. The band itself is made up of Mont Campbell on bass, who was in Egg and National Health, Clive Brooks, who played drums for Egg, Dave Stewart, who plays organ and was in Egg, played with Bill Bruford, and he was also in the great fusion band Hatfield in the North, and on guitar, Steve Hillage from Gong and the band Con. It's very old school, very psychedelia, a little dated, but if you like that kind of thing, you're going to love this record. I'd never heard of it, and someone on a YouTube thing that I was watching dropped the name, and he mentioned Steve Hillage playing. I'm a big Steve Hillage fan, so sure, let's check that out. And I liked it. Reminded me of things like Gong, of course, The Nice, the band Ultimate Spinach, Clearlight, Brain Ticket, the German krautrock band, and a band, you got to love this name, Bulbous Creation. Good stuff all the way around. Again, it's going to sound very 60s, but if you like that kind of psychedelia sound, you're going to love this band. Moving on to 1978. The bass player Hellmut Hattler, he did a record called Bassball. It's Bassball. He's a German jazz rock bassist and composer. He founded the band, if you've ever heard of Kran, Kraan. They were seminal figures, really important cornerstone figures of krautrock and fusion. Hattler played with people like Tina Turner and Billy Cobham, Joachim Kuhn, and then the great Alphonse Mouzon. This is another record that is super fun. It does sound a little dated at times, but it's just good stuff. I mean, this is bread and butter for guys like me. It's appealing. It's intellectually complicated, so that you have to think a little bit as you go along. But it's great stuff. It reminded me of things like Pierre Morland's Gong, Era, Jan Hammer, Michael Shreve, the band Ela Craig, Nova, the German bands Grobschnitt and Guru. Good stuff. You don't hear too much about Hellmut Hattler. He has a few records out, but yeah, baseball's great. Moving on to 1976, British prog band, symphonic rock band Jade Warrior, their album Kites. This is the first Jade Warrior record I had ever heard, and absolutely loved it. It's got a very neat blending of rock, jazz, Latin, Japanese, African, and ambient. Very cinematic in tone. Fred Frith, if you know Fred Frith from bands like Henry Cow and his solo records, he was in a great band called Massacre. He's one of those guitar players that will put like drills onto their guitar and make guitar like Jack White does out of planks of wood and all this kind of thing. He's a great player and a very interesting player. Steve Winwood helped these guys get signed to Island Records back in the day. And they've got a bunch of records out. All of the Atlantic stuff you can find, it's all got very Japanese covers to it. And it's swell stuff. It reminded me of Gong again. Gong seems to be a theme this week. The band Greenslade, it also reminded me of bands like Kit Watkins and Happy the Man, Camel, Pink Floyd. You get it. It's good stuff. And then finally, Jesse Koolhaas, Joost Swart, and Bjorn Whaling have a record out called Swart, Whaling, Koolhaas. They're a Dutch band. This is straight up jazz, piano, drums. There's some electronics there. The album is a result of a 2-day improvisation. It's a rich, deep, very spatial recording, and just modern classical mixed with jazz and progressive elements. Once again has a cinematic feel, kind of meditative, but at times it sort of veers towards the melancholic. Fantastic record. It's a great record to put on late at night or at dinner. This reminded me of bands like Kitaro, Patrick O'Hearn, Jerry Goodman, the violin player for Mahavishnu Orchestra, the New Age artist Deuter, and it also reminded me of Mark Isham. It was good stuff across the board. I had come across it on every Friday. I go through new releases, and this had been one of those things on Spotify where it says other albums that you might like, and so I took a chance on it, and boy, it was great stuff. Had a little Pat Metheny in there too, I want to say, but yeah, Swart, Walling, and Koolhaas from 2021. Good stuff. You can find it again. Go to the description, check it out for yourself. And that's going to do it. Let's see, quick and easy. A Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday. I've got a whole nother batch of stuff here for you. Please do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video to your social media. That really helps me out. And come back here on Friday, and we'll have a whole lot of other stuff. I've got another special coming out this weekend. This is about a tag that the vinyl community was doing about progressive rock. And so it's like 10 questions that will hip you to some cool stuff. So again, I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Please comment or let me know via email what you think, what you would like to see. If there's any specials you want me to do, I got a whole list of things over here that I'm kind of doing. There's like a top 10 books that influenced me, top 10 guitarists, top 10 drummers, that kind of thing. So those are going to be coming on the weekend. I just didn't want to do them during the week and interrupt the flow of what we got going here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So until Friday, I'll see you, and I hope your week is good. See ya.